Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the June 15th regular meeting of Council. The City of Parksville recognizes the people of the Coast Salish Nations and their territory upon which we gather with gratitude. First up this evening is the adoption of the minutes of the Town Hall Council meeting held May 28th, 2015. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Patterson, seconded by Councillor Beale. Any questions, comments, deletions, additions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. The second is the minutes of the council meeting held June the 1st, 2015. I need a mover and a seconder for these minutes. Moved by Councillor Oates, seconded by Councillor Greer. Any omissions, deletions, additions? No. Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much. Next, I need a mover and a seconder for the approval of tonight's agenda. Moved by Councillor Greer, seconded by Councillor Beale. Any additions to the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much. This evening, ladies and gentlemen, we have two delegations. The first delegation is the Oceanside Pickleball Club and request for additional courts. So he was representing the Pickleball Club as Mr. Staite and Jim Cunningham here this evening. Come on down, gentlemen. Turn on the microphone and you have the floor. And I gather that pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the community of Oceanside. In North America. Oh boy, okay. Go right ahead. You have 10 minutes.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. We've provided all the council members with a copy of what I'm going to read. My name is Jim Cunningham, and I am the president of the Oceanside Pickleball Club. And this is Tom Staite, who is also a member of our executive. He's our tournament director and our equipment manager. I would like to start our presentation by giving you a brief history of our club. The Oceanside Pickleball Club was started in Parksville in the summer of 2013 with 20 people. We were fortunate enough to have the City of Parksville line the 2 tennis courts at the community park with 2 pickleball courts for us. And this way we could play pickleball, and the people that wanted to play tennis still could. Every time we played, people that were walking by would stop and ask us about the game. As we quickly outgrew these 2 courts, we again approached the city about possibly painting pickleball lines for 6 courts on the lacrosse box at the community park. After we had moved to the lacrosse box, we still had lots of people watching us and asking questions. By September, we had 98 members and had bought ourselves 3 portable nets, and Pagosa bought us an additional 3, as well as a defibrillator, a first aid kit, and a blower to clear off the boxes. At the end of last year's season, which is May until October, we had 128 members. And as of today, we have just over 130 members, and we're only a month and a half into our season. One of the biggest issues we are having is that our membership is growing faster than anybody anticipated. Pickleball is growing by leaps and bounds in all the provinces in Canada, and more so in the U.S. Many cities and towns have built exclusive pickleball courts or have painted pickleball lines on tennis courts. Some tennis and golf clubs have even started to include pickleball in their facilities, and it's also being introduced in our schools. The RDN has even recognized the growth of pickleball and has added it to their spring-summer activities guide, which plays 6 days a week on 9 courts at the Howie Meeker Arena until mid-July when the ice goes back in. Our club has provided 4 instructors, and we are teaching the game to over 80 people at the ice rink. When the ice goes back in on July the 17th, these 80 people are going to be looking for somewhere else to play, and we're pretty confident that they're going to be wanting to join our club. The RDN is also adding pickleball at the Qualicum Beach Civic Center starting in September on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 9 until 12 on 3 indoor courts. The City of Port Alberni has even recognized the growth of the sport. They have committed to paint lines on 4 courts on one of their tennis courts by the end of this August, and next year they're planning to resurface their lacrosse box and paint lines for 6 courts. They are also building a standalone dedicated pickleball court that will be finished by this August. And the Port Alberni, they only have 14 pickleball players as of now. Because our club is growing so fast, we are again looking for additional courts to play on. Since the 2 tennis courts at the community park are very rarely used during the weekday mornings, we are asking if the city would allow the Parks Board to line 8 pickleball courts for us. We only play from 9 in the morning till just before 1. We are not asking for the tennis nets to be removed or altered in any way. They would stay up and still could be used for tennis, and we would be using our own portable nets. Tom and I have met with the parks foreman, Warren Payne, and he has met with his boss, and we've been told by Warren that this could be done this year under their normal maintenance budget and at the same time as the resurfacing of the Springwood tennis courts. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Members of council, any questions for the delegation? Councillor Powell and then Councillor Beale.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you very much for your presentation. You've got me curious enough. I'm going to go down there and watch what pickleball is. I've never seen it. So anyways, one of the things I wanted to ask you is the RDN, they're adding a bunch of pickleballs through the different guides and recreation things that they're doing. Do they know how much it's grown since you guys started and that there is an accommodation issue?
Yes, they do. They do that. They approached us.
Oh, okay.
About giving some instruction down there because everybody's hearing about the sport and they thought it would be good to make a little extra money. So they approached one of our instructors. Tom and I are also instructors as well. So we go down there 3 days a week and help them instruct. So they want to get on board.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Beale.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you very much for your presentation. I have had the pleasure of going by and seeing it in action, although I can't say that I know all the rules and the way the game is played. I was just curious if it's essential to have an enclosed area for the pickleball courts, and yeah, I was just curious about that, as that would impact building a new court at some point in time.
It's not dependent on the game, but you'd be chasing a lot of balls if the fence wasn't there. When we did approach the parks foreman, Warren Payne, he was very much on board with this, and I was kind of tongue-in-cheek. I said, you know, if you don't want to do the tennis courts for us, you could always build us our own courts. And he said, well, next year they're coming up in 2016 with a master plan. And he said, what we might look at is possibly building you guys your own courts, putting the tennis courts strictly for tennis again. It's really, really growing fast. All the communities are having growing pains, but we're fortunate we've got a nice city that works very well with us.
Thank you.
Councillor Oates and then Councillor Greer.
I hope Councillor Greer is going to tell us how good it was when they put the hockey boards on the rinks and they didn't have to chase the puck anymore. So. You told us that the city staff have painted some existing tennis courts. Right now,
I'm sorry, question please again?
The city staff, we currently have tennis courts in the city that have been painted for pickleball?
Yes, what they did when we first started our pickleball's been around in Parksville for over 10 years, but mostly in the evenings at schools and churches and a few places like that. So we decided to get a club started, and when we did, we approached Warren Payne, Parks foreman, and the 2 tennis courts that are down at the community park, they were a little leery because they didn't know anything about the sport, didn't know if it would go over or not. So he says, well, we'll just put one pickleball court on one tennis court, one pickleball court on the other tennis court, just to see how it works. And then he kept coming down, and people just kept coming and coming and coming, so then we approached them about the lacrosse box.
Okay, so that's where I was going with the question. So the painting of the additional lines there, does that cause any conflict with the tennis people? You know, has there been any conflicts with the tennis people as a result of this?
The lines get painted is a different color than the tennis lines.
Right.
And so that's why we can easily put on, instead of just one per court, we can actually put 4 per court to make 8. So it's just with a different color blue line in that.
And
So
that doesn't affect the
not
tennis?
really. I mean, they'll complain a little bit, but they always will. But if it's white lines for tennis and it's blue lines for pickleball, we took a low contrast color so it wouldn't affect them as much.
Okay, thank you.
Just to, I see your concern, what your concern is here. I've been down at the parks every day, Monday to Friday, for the last 10 years because I used to play house league ball Monday and Wednesday, rep league ball on Tuesday and Thursday before I joined pickleball. And you drive by those 2 tennis courts every morning, and there's basically 4 people that play tennis down there, and they're older than I am, and they all just stand at the baseline, and all they do is hit it back and forth. They don't play tennis, they just hit it back and forth. And for some reason, about a month ago, they got down to 2 people. So they put notices on both gates looking for 2 more people. So those are the only people that do use the courts.
But you can coexist.
Yes, we can. Tennis players are reluctant to give up tennis courts, and we understand that. Pickleball is growing very, very fast. Tennis is declining, and we do get 100% of the tennis people once their knees go.
Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thanks for your presentation. I was wondering if it was appropriate, since Warren Payne said it'd be no problem doing the lines if council approved it. I think the fact that they're in desperate need for more courts, maybe we could make a motion at this point and get on with it. So,
Let's hear from Councillor Patterson.
okay.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just in your summary, you also said that you use the lacrosse boxes as well. Do you have a preference?
Yes, we do. For 2 reasons. Tennis is played north and south, so you're not looking into the sun. The lacrosse box is east and west, so you're in the morning when we play, you're always looking into the sun. And the other reason is the lacrosse box, for some reason, I've never seen it before, if the lacrosse box goes this way and they play this way, the court is crowned this way. I'm thinking that's possibly for drainage, so you're pretty much always running uphill. And we have a lot of injuries, plantar fasciitis and stuff like that, on the lacrosse box surface. It's blacktop, whereas tennis courts, totally different surface on a tennis court, and we don't have that problem.
And you would have 6 pickleball on the tennis courts,
You can
or 8?
8. My wife and I went down and we measured out the tennis courts, and they're 120 feet square, and you can stick 8 pickleball courts. You can on each side of a net. You can stick 2. You can stick 2 on the other side, and then on the other court you can stick 2, and you can stick 2.
One other little question in the game. Is that with 2 players, or it can be 4 players on?
It can be 2 or 4.
Okay.
We pretty much play 99% of the time.
But they're always the same size of field, sort. Thank you.
Just before we go to a motion from Councillor Greer, I witnessed pickleball playing at the Oceanside place in the Howie Meeker Arena. It was full. I was there for a morning meeting, and it was awesome to watch. I'm interested in playing it myself at some point in time. In your report, you say on the 4th paragraph, at the bottom of the 4th paragraph, you said the RDN is also adding pickleball at the Qualicum Beach Civic Center starting in September. Will that be for the winter months?
Yes, pickleball is in the past has been introduced at the BYLAWS High School 2 nights a week.
Okay.
And it's having the same problems we are. There's too many people. I used to play there, and you have 2 courts, and there's 8 people playing, and there's like 20 people waiting. So you you're up there for half an hour. You're sitting for half an hour. So they want to introduce it. The RDN is going to take three indoor courts at the Qualicum Beach Civic Center starting in September. They're going to stop sometime in December and start up again in January, go till spring, and then they're anticipating coming back to the Howie Meeker Arena next year when the ice goes out.
Are you paying for using that surface at the Qualicum Beach Civic Center? Are you being charged for that?
There's a $3 drop-in fee.
Okay.
That's payable to the RDN.
I see. So the RDN are the organizers.
Yes,
Okay.
we're supporting them. They don't want any involvement with us because there's money involved, and we understand that. And we are promoting the RDN because when it's raining out, we go inside. But we all prefer to play outside, and probably 50% of our membership heads down to Arizona for the winter time. So the 50% that are still here can play inside.
So the pickleball itself doesn't do any damage to hardwood floors?
No.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, that's interesting. Councillor Patterson, you have another question or another comment?
I think that you partially asked it. I was just wondering if there was other facilities here in Parksville, like you said, BYLAWS had it. Have you ever played at the Parksville Community and Conference Center or
Parksville.
next door?
Conference Center is hard to get into. Like badminton, there's a lot going on at a time, so we found it's better at the schools.
Yeah, and we also play. Oh, they play it at the Baptist Church, but that's by invite only. I used to play there, but the caliber is not what I'm looking for. And Nanoose has it, and Fairwinds has it. But they're drop-in fees like I think it's $5 or $6. And down in Nanaimo, they play it at Oliver Woods.
So where would somebody go if they wanted to play pickleball? You got the presser tonight. Who would they call to sign up for pickleball? Somebody like myself.
If you go under Pagosa and you look under their umbrella, we are under there, and there's a contact name. My name's under there, my email address, and my phone number.
Okay.
And to join our club, you have to be 55 years old, and you have to join Pagosa. So you would squeak in, Mayor.
That's why your membership is growing. You have to be 55 or over. Okay, Councillor Greer, I guess you're about to make a motion.
Well, first of all, I suggest that maybe you should have second thought of playing at your age and the way your knees are. Anyways, I would make a motion that we go ahead and get these lines painted as quickly as possible so that these chaps can get more people playing.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor Powell. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor Oates.
I'm certainly in favor of it. I'm just wondering if staff would want to comment on that before we start. I'd like to know from the Parks Department that it's okay to do all these things now. But I'm certainly in favor of having it done and supporting it, because I do believe that it's a growing sport.
Okay, Mr. Figuera, we have one of your key members of your staff that have said that this could be done. So any further comments from you, or would you like to go away and check it out and get back to it?
Yeah, I wasn't really part of the conversation. The gentlemen are indicating they spoke to Warren, and he seemed to think it was possible. It might be a good idea to get a thumbs up from Warren that he's prepared to do it. Sounds like from what's been said under the existing budgets, I don't know. I really don't know the cost of doing that, or if he's settled in on doing that right now. It might be a good idea to let staff just comment on it. I mean, see, it sounds like the conversation has happened, but it'd be nice to.
And we could do that fairly quickly.
Oh yeah, no problem.
So okay.
No problem.
Director of Finance, Mr. Butterfield.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is just a comment on the RDN currently books the other tennis courts to the Arrowsmith Tennis Club, and they're booked, and I'm not sure of the days. We'd probably have to look at it to see what days that is. Most of the days that's booked in the morning, so if the other tennis courts are also booked in the morning for a different purpose, then if you're not a member of the tennis club, Arrowsmith Tennis Club, then you won't be able to play tennis in the morning, perhaps. But again, we could find out more information about what days the Arrowsmith has that, because otherwise then someone who did want to play tennis in the morning may not be able to.
Yes, Councillor Beale.
Just to follow up on Mr. Butterworth's comments, my understanding that in the community park it was primarily for drop-in tennis, although maybe there are some bookings, but that most of the bookings were for Springwood, which I didn't think would be affected in any way by this proposal. But I could stand corrected.
Yes, Director Butterworth.
Yeah, if I can follow up, that's exactly what I was saying, is that the tennis club has Springwood booked, so you can't play tennis in the morning. If this is booked for pickleball, then where are you going to play tennis in the morning if you're not a member of Arrowsmith? So that's the comment I was making. But again, we can get more information on exactly when Arrowsmith has that other court booked. So there's, there should be somewhere where someone can play, possibly play tennis in the
There are
morning.
tennis courts available at Belena's school where you could play tennis as well if it was. There is no spots for tennis.
Okay. Ms. Comas, given that we've got a motion on the floor, and yet there's some information that staff have to have, would it be wise not to go through with the motion until we have the feedback?
You could just put forward a motion to refer it to staff for review and a report at the next council meeting.
Would you be prepared to change your motion, Mr. Councillor Greer?
I guess that's what we have to do.
Well,
Everybody seems to be
it's
in
a
favor of
second
that.
motion. You don't vote on the first motion, and it's another motion to refer it. It's a motion to refer.
Councillor Powell, you second the motion?
I'll make a motion to refer
Well,
to
Councillor
staff.
Greer has done that, so you're seconding it? Sorry? Yes, Mrs. Comas. Let's start over again.
Councillor Powell can move the motion to refer, and another member of council can second that, and then it sends the whole thing back to staff for review and report.
I gather that for our presenters this evening, there's time is a factor here, is it not?
I would think it would be for your budget department, yes, because the people that do the work come up from Victoria, and they charge X amount of dollars for traveling up and traveling back. They're coming up to do the Springwood courts. I'm not sure when they're doing them, but the same people would be able to do the 2 tennis courts at the park. So Warren would know that. I did not mention his supervisor's name here because I only know his first name. It's Mike. So they would be the ones to contact. But if you're thinking of referring this to the next council meeting, there could be a problem with the time period.
Okay,
But
so
I'm
we
not
have a
sure.
motion on the floor to refer, which we'll do. How soon would it be reasonable for staff to let members of council know that it would be okay to go ahead with this? And then we could do a vote? We could do a vote electronically by email if we could do that? We can't. We have to wait till the next council meeting? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I would think within a couple of days we'll be able to let you know. Within a couple of days we'd be able to let you know the results.
So you're telling us, Ms. Gomez, we'd have to wait till the next council meeting?
Either that or call a special meeting. Those are the only two options.
The council be receptive to calling a special meeting?
But it'll just be dependent upon the information that staff gets. July the 6th is the next council meeting. It may be that timing works for the Parks Department.
I'm hearing from these gentlemen that July the 6th may be too late.
I don't know that, Your Worship.
Okay.
The Warren would be the fellow to talk to about that. He might say, look, we've got Springwood booked to come in September, which there's not a problem. But if he says, now we got them coming in the middle of July, there could be a problem.
Okay, Councillor Beale and Councillor Greer.
I'm just wondering if, since we are planning to meet ahead of the next council meeting on a separate issue, could we not have this part as
That's
an
a very
open
good
council
suggestion.
meeting
Yeah,
and then go
we're
from
meeting-
there?
Yeah, we're meeting this month. Very good suggestion. Councillor Greer and then Councillor Oates.
Well, I was just going to comment the fact that Warren Payne has already agreed, as long as council would agree. I don't know why we drag this thing out. I mean, it's a simple thing of putting lines on a court.
I think that the answer to that was given by both Mr. Butterworth and Mr. Figuera, that they have to, they just want to double check, make sure. Okay, we got Councillor. I'm sorry, Councillor Oates, then Councillor Beale.
I'm just looking for direction. I know we got at least 2 motions on the table right now, one to refer and then the original motion. If we were to defeat both of those motions and come forward with a motion that said absent any complaint, any concerns from staff, the pickleball lines get painted. Is that something we could do so it doesn't have to come back for us to approve? Because I think what we're hearing as the concern of council is our staff saying this is okay. If staff says this is okay, do we really need to vote on it again? Can we structure a motion in such a way that when you get the go-ahead from staff to do it, you get the confirmation from Warren or whoever tomorrow morning to do it, they can start tomorrow afternoon instead of having to come back before us again? Wondering if we could have a motion like that.
Your Worship, I'm not telling the mayor and councils what to do, but if the two motions were defeated, you could come up with another motion with the approval of Warren Payne. And I understand the council is just taking my word for it, and I don't have a problem with checking with Warren. The reason why we're here is because when the master plan was made, when the tennis courts were put in, there was the wording in there exclusively for tennis. So now they couldn't give us the okay to do this because the wording may need to be changed at one point. And this is why we're here, is you people have the ability to do that. So I would humbly suggest that you defeat both motions, put another motion on the floor saying is if we get back to Warren Payne and everything is cool, we can move ahead with this.
Okay. Councillor Beal.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments. And a couple of things. One, we are in fact going to be meeting on another issue very, very soon. It's actually next week. It's next Monday. So I think that the timeline is quite adequate. And as Jim Cunningham himself mentioned here, and I do not doubt the veracity of what you're saying or what you've stated here, but it would concern me that that Warren is being attributed with these comments without him actually being here, or that this report does not actually come either from our Parks Department or from Mr. Squire. So I would appreciate having that confirmation and that more accurate, let's say, not that was a poor choice, but just a solid report from our staff regarding both the feasibility of this and addressing any potential concerns that there might be from tennis players. So I think for all of those reasons, I would support referring the motion.
We do meet again on a week from today, so that's not that far off. Ms. Comas.
Yes, Your Worship. If Council wishes to refer this to staff to provide comment, we could include in the motion that it come forward at an open Council meeting to be held on June 22nd at 4 p.m. in the Forum, and then that would cover off I believe that's next Monday. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. Was it simple enough that Councillor Greer and Councillor Powell could withdraw their motions rather than having to vote on it?
No, it would. If you just refer the motion, then it'll all come back and. So
we don't have to bother with those other motions. No. Okay, so we had a motion to refer from Councillor Powell, and seconded by Councillor Beal. We need to vote on that. So all those in favor? Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, so that motion carries. Thank you. Thanks very much. So you'll know a week from tonight.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council.
Well, thank you. And thanks for probably making us the pickleball capital of Canada at some point in time. The next delegation we have is the Royal Canadian Legion Branch number 49, Mount Arrowsmith. And would you please, the presenters, please come forward to the microphone. And I'd like to say, I won't mention under new business, I'll do it now. I attended a delightful luncheon yesterday noon at the Legion for the veterans of this community, and it was a very wonderful event, very well organized. The food was excellent. The music was excellent by the pipe band, and it was just an all-around very, very impressive event. So welcome. I believe it's Mr. Livingstone, is it? Mr. Livingstone, I presume.
Thank you. I'm here as a member of the Parksville Legion to speak on the matter of our application for an exemption from the payment of property taxes for the year 2016. The primary purpose of Branch 49, like all legions, are to raise funds for donations to veterans, their families, and the public at large, as well as to be a place where veterans and other members may gather and socialize. Branch 49 also operates a loan cupboard from which wheelchairs, canes, crutches, walkers, transfer benches, and a myriad other types of equipment used by the infirm and elderly are available to the public at large. Monetary donations for the use of same are requested but are not mandatory. The need for such services would appear obvious. And if I could refer you to, should be about 3 pages in, the material you have is an analysis of the loan cupboard, and it lists, I actually attended at Life Support, the company that sells and rents these things commercially, a couple of weeks ago to get their rental rates, which were provided voluntarily by the owner, and it compares those rates to the fact that we have those items available for a donation if possible, but not required. And it should be noted that one of our greatest supporters in this endeavor is the Life Support business, a local business which both rents and sells this type of equipment. Not only do they consider us not a competitor, but they provide us with repair services, usually for free, and steep discounts on any items we need to replace. Branch 49 does, in fact, operate a licensed lounge and receives additional revenue from renting its hall and other amenities. Without these revenues, Branch 49 would not be able to meet its operational overhead, which in turn would prevent the branch from using its premises to earn income from gaming events and the Poppy campaign, 100% of which is returned to the community through charitable donations. It is of primary importance that the Council realize that all of the monies obtained through gaming and other fundraising events at the Legion are returned to the community. Not one penny of donations is used for administrative or operational purposes. The services provided by Branch 49 are all run by volunteers. Volunteers operate the loan cupboard, run the meat draws, run the bingos, and of course operate the annual Poppy Drive in October and November. And attached next to the loan cupboard documents is a charitable donation summary which sets out the amounts given by the Legion over the last 7 or 8 years, and you'll note the total at the bottom, $447,990 has gone out to Oceanside community from the various items mentioned in the summary, and they include payments to students at BYLAWS, the Ladies Auxiliary, gaming and special events fundraising, and of course the Poppy funds, all of which go to charity. If these figures are considered over the course of the previous 15 years, they show that Branch 49 donated in excess of $1.25 million directly to the community within that time frame. An exemption from property taxes granted by the city for 2014 and 2015 went a long way toward enabling Branch 49 to continue to serve our community in ways and with amounts that no other organization does. Legions in Courtenay, Wallakum, Lanceville, Esquimalt, and Langford have been granted exemptions by their respective communities and pay no property taxes. Legion Branch 49 has contacted the owner of its neighbor, the Rod and Gun, and has been assured that the Rod and Gun does not consider the Legion to be its competition with respect to bar or food sales. And then we attach the relevant financial information with respect to this year's situation. And that's my presentation. Any questions?
Thank you very much. It's my understanding to staff, the Director of Finance, Mr. Butterworth, that the Legion does receive permissive taxation from the City of Parksville, does it not?
I haven't reviewed that myself to know whether they do, but I did see an email today from Mr. Manson that was indicating that there was a permissive exemption for them, so I assume there is.
Okay, questions from council? They do receive permissive taxation for quite a number of years now. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Mr. Livingstone, for coming tonight. That was a good presentation, and I certainly support the Legion's work that they do. It's phenomenal, and I do understand that over the years that you do get permissive taxes, so I don't see that changing anytime soon. But anyways, thank you for coming. You do a great job. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Any further questions, Councillor Powell?
Thank you, Your Worship. You should be happy that you have Mr. Greer's stamp of approval. Not very many people get that at this table. One, I'd like to thank you very much for your presentation. I'm always amazed by how much work the Legion does for this community. And like every year I see you out there, I always attend the Veterans Day out here at the, what is it called? Cenotaph. And it takes more meaning for me because I found relatives who have died in the First and Second World Wars, and I really appreciate what you do.
Councillor Oates.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming and presenting to council. Thank you very much for what you do. You're a very valued member of our community, and I certainly would be very proud to support the tax exemption for your group. Thank you very much for the work that you do.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. As I echo everyone around the table for coming forward, was there anything specific that brought you forward for the permissive tax exemption?
More by repetition than anything else. I've been here for the last 4 years.
Okay. Which I would hope that you still come forward, actually.
We were successful in getting an exemption for 2014 and for this year, and we're now looking forward to the same type of treatment for next year.
Thank you.
Well, I want to echo the comments from everybody. You're a very valued organization for our community, not only the City of Parksville, but the outlying areas of Oceanside. And yesterday was a fine example of that. The veterans that were there, they're no longer young, but they deserve our gratitude and they deserve our support, and your organization does a great job doing that. And we hope that you'll be around for many, many years to come. And Chairman Sue Hodges, sitting in the audience, thank you for all you do. I know that you have lots and lots of things to do and lots of things to coordinate, and your work is very much appreciated. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Councillor Rhodes.
So, Your Worship, how do we get the wheels started for this request to get some action to it?
They'll probably be coming forward in the late summer. The advertising has been done. The applications are due in June 30th, and staff will bring forward a report, and once council approves all of the exemptions that are in the report, then that will come forward in a bylaw, and it has to be passed by the 31st of October.
So when the report comes back from staff now, it will reflect the tax exemption that's been requested here this evening?
Yes, it will reflect all applications.
Okay, moving on. We have the next report is from the Director of Finance with regards to the audit services for the City of Parksville for 2015 to 2019. So, Mr. Butterworth, first of all, I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendation. Moved by Councillor Rhodes, seconded by Councillor Powell. Mr. Butterworth, would you please give us the background on this issue?
Thank you, Your Worship. The community charter requires the municipalities to appoint an auditor to conduct the annual audit of the city's financial statements. And the city's longtime auditor, McGorman McLean, was last appointed to a 2-year term that ended with the 2014 financial statements. So we are currently without an appointed auditor. So we must appoint an auditor for the 2015 year, And 5 years ago, we undertook a RFP process and had 3 different auditors apply for the position. And council at that time awarded to McGorman McLean for a 3-year term, and then we had a 2-year renewal. So now this brings us to the end of that 5 years, and it probably would be appropriate to go out for another RFP process. And the recommendation is as per the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Butterworth. Any questions on the, or any discussion on the recommendation from the movers? No. Councillor Oates.
When the request for proposals went out before, was the bidder that was selected the lowest bidder?
No, it was not. The lowest bidder was from Nanaimo, and the council awarded it to the local firm.
So, in the report that you're proposing, there were 3 options. In the sense that we could reappoint the auditor that we have now, we could stay within the area that's known as the City of Parksville, or we could go out to the Oceanside area.
That is.
I'm sorry, that's what I read in the report. Did I read it wrong?
I haven't read the report, Your Worship, but you are not allowed to stay locally. You have to go out and accept bids from whomever.
Well, the options, the reason I'm saying that is the option on page 34 says, options, undertake a full RFP process based on our 2010 evaluation criteria, post the RFP on a BC bid in the local newspaper, undertake a local RFP process open to firms in the Oceanside area, or invite our incumbent audit to submit a proposal for audit service for the next 5 years for evaluation. So can you explain that to me?
Yes. Number 3, your purchasing policy says that if for costs that are over a certain dollar amount, it would go out for an RFP process. But council has the option of not following their purchasing policy. It is your purchasing policy. It's not over $75,000, so we don't have to advertise Canada-wide. So council could ask our incumbent auditor for a proposal and evaluate it and decide to accept it or not, or we can follow the purchasing policy, which is what I would recommend, and go over the RFP process. But it is council's policy, so you should be able to make that decision.
So thank you. What's the will of council? Councillor Greer was the mover, so Councillor Greer, you're on, and then Councillor Oates.
No, I haven't moved anything yet, but...
You moved the motion.
I didn't make it. But anyways, whoever made it's okay with me. I recall with the last council, the same question come up, and we did suggest, I think, and it did go through, that we hire Mark McGorman again, simply because so we have continuity and also the fact that he's local. But we did go ahead, I believe, 2 or 3 years ago and decide on that. But I don't know what... It sounds like the city staff wants something different. You want something different, or do you want me to make a motion to hire him?
You have a motion on the floor to adopt the recommendations in the report. So if you wish to do something different from that, then you would need to either withdraw this motion with the agreement of the mover and seconder and move something different, or defeat this motion and move something different. But right now, you've got a motion on the floor to undertake a request for proposal.
Which means go out to tender.
Correct.
Oh, I certainly didn't make that motion.
Who made the motion?
No, Councillor Oates made the motion, and Councillor Powell seconded it.
Councillor who?
Councillor Oates made
I'm
the
sorry.
motion, and Councillor Powell seconded it.
Councillor Oates.
Yes, so the motion that I made is that the report be received, and that we for clarity, that we direct staff to go with option 1. With the request for proposal. And if I could, I'd speak to that. And the reason I think that it's important to do that is not that I have any concerns about our current auditor, but it is in line with our purchasing policy, and it would be the most transparent process to have a public opportunity for everybody to bid on this. So certainly I would invite our current auditor to get their hat in the ring, but it's no comment on the service that they've provided, which I believe has been an excellent service. But we've done it for 5 years now. I think it's appropriate for us to entertain a request request for proposals for this service again.
Any further discussions before I call the vote? I'd just like to point out that I totally agree that transparency is the primary focus here. Seeing no other further questions, all those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. Okay. The next item is the permissive taxation exemption policy that we're going to discuss once again. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that the policy be received? Moved by Councillor Powell, seconded by Councillor Beale. Ms. Gomez, would you please give us the background on this particular issue once again?
Yes, Your Worship. At the last review of this particular policy, Council requested staff to look at an option that would include allowing the curling club to be granted a 100% property tax exemption. So staff met and discussed options for doing that, and it was determined that if Council chose to go this particular route, we could establish a new criteria within the current policy that where the annual space and equipment operating and maintenance costs exceeds 30% of annual revenue, up to a 100% permissive tax exemption may be provided. Now, this is not included in the recommendation because it is Council's prerogative with respect to permissive tax exemptions, whether they choose to give 100% or 50% or no percent. So staff are recommending receipt of the report, and arising from that receipt, if Council wishes to give staff direction, then a motion to that effect would be required.
Okay. Comments and questions? Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just some background in this. When we spent a couple of months doing research on this with the other council and with the advisory board, and at that time our permissive taxes, I believe, were around $235, $235,000. So we come up with this plan to hit a cap, because it was under, I think, Chris Berger, Mayor Berger, that we were looking for more revenue, and I believe it was our now present Mayor Mark who suggested we should have a cap. So that's how the advisory board got to work and worked out these numbers. But since then, we have had several places reassessed, and instead of now being $235,000, it's down to what is it, $198,000. So we have some room if everybody wants to give the curling club a break, which I don't really suggest, but I would support under these conditions. But I also think that we must work towards getting at the end of our time here that we get down to 1.67 of the budget. So because we have been the highest in this whole area when it comes to permissive taxes. So I think it's important that we keep in mind that even though now we're down to a permissive tax of $196,000, that we did come down from $235,000. So we have a little bit of room, but over the long term, we would like to keep it under that cap, and we'd like to meet the 167%. That's just the background. I'll vote for anything you like.
Councillor Oates. That's been recorded, by the way.
I just
Did you get that?
Yeah.
I just with respect to the report under the analysis there, the last paragraph on page 38 of 52, you're saying that the staff is suggesting 100% permissive tax exemption could be granted where 30% or more of the organization's revenues are just demonstrated to be required for the maintenance and operation of the facility. That's what the staff is recommending.
As an amendment to the policy.
That would be an amendment to the policy. So if we go back to the previous page there, then where it shows that, if I'm reading this correctly, the curling club, the ballpark figure is 38% goes towards their maintenance and operating. So then they would clearly be one of the ones that would be captured under staff's suggestion for a possible 100% tax exemption. I understand what you've told us. Okay, good. Thanks.
Any further comments or questions regarding this? So if this motion is passed, the policy remains the same. Yeah. Okay, does everybody
Yes.
understand that?
So this is, the motion before you is just to receive the report.
Receive it. So if it's received, it stays the same.
Yes, so if you wish to change that, then arising out of that, you would move a motion to amend the policy to incorporate the suggested amendment
Okay.
of the 30% operating.
Any further questions, comments?
I would be prepared to make that motion when we deal with the one that's on the table.
Right, so we'll vote on this one. Okay. Further comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. Go ahead, Councillor Rhodes.
I move that staff bring forward a proposal as per their analysis for 100% tax exemption possibility where 30% or more of an organization's revenue are demonstrated to be required. You understand what I'm motion?
I have a seconder, Councillor Patterson. Any further discussions on that motion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you.
Not the same guy.
Okay, so tonight, under bylaws for final adoption, we have two bylaws, the Development Application Procedures and Fees Amendment Bylaw and the Zoning and Development Amendment Bylaw 2015, number 2000.100. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Greer, seconded by Councillor Powell. Any discussion? Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've seen lots of our bylaws that come forward, and it's just a statement. And I'm wondering if it's possible to have the bylaw in our report as well, and that's so that we can. So I'm not sure if that's just a friendly request. Okay.
That would be okay. So from now on, all right. Thank you. All right. Any further questions or comments, Councillor Oates?
Pending a positive result of this vote here, then these bylaws come into effect once the signatures are done tomorrow, is it?
That's correct. Well, technically they come into effect when council passes the motion.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any further comments, questions? I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. All right. New business, and if you would permit us, Council. Councillor Beale and myself attended the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Conference, and I believe, Councillor Beale, you have a motion as a result of that. Just, if I may, I'll just, leading up to Councillor Beale's motion, we, in attending the plenary session, there were 6 major motions that were almost unanimously passed by the 1,700 members attending from all across Canada. And the first one had to do with climate change action being recommended. That was approved. I'll give the Coles Notes version. I can do it later for people that want to see me offline or the press. Number 2 was the National Public Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Aboriginal Women and Girls. That was the ratio of votes was something like 95, 96% to whatever. It was almost a majority. The other one was, the third one was the private sector involvement in infrastructure and federal funding, and that motion talked about it being very complicated and very time-consuming, and wanted some changes made. The fourth motion was protecting federal funding allocations for social housing, and that's reflected in the motion that was made that I'll talk about at the end. The fifth was the Marine Oil Spill Emergency Response Coordination and Support. As we've all seen this evening, we have another oil spill in Falls Creek, so here we go again. But the main motion that Councillor Beale is going to bring up had to called for a leadership debate on municipal issues, and the 3 top municipal issues were infrastructure, including water, sewer, roads, the bridges, and went on and on and on. The second one was had to do with affordable housing, and the third had to do with refresh my memory again. Third had to do with public transportation. And this was constantly debated at the conference, and all of the national leaders all spoke to it. So on that note, we came away, Councillor Beale and myself, that we felt very strongly about bringing this next motion that Councillor Beale is going to make to all of Council, because it's a very, very important issue in this next federal election, which is coming up in October. So, Councillor Beale, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Yes, I would like to put forth a resolution, and this is regarding a federal debate on municipal issues. Whereas the Federation of Canadian Municipalities on June 6, 2015, adopted a resolution calling upon all federal party leaders to participate in a national debate on municipal issues before the 2015 federal election. Therefore, it be resolved that the Council of the City of Parksville endorse the Federation of Canadian Municipalities resolution of June 6, 2015, and call upon all federal party leaders to participate in a national debate on municipal issues, including infrastructure deficits, provision of affordable housing, and transportation issues. And further, that Council write to all local federal candidates asking them to present their positions with respect to these same issues as they affect the City of Parksville.
Councillor Oates, I just wanted to point out before I go around the table for further comments that the federal infrastructure deficit now is estimated as being at $200 billion. So it's a considerable issue for especially large cities, mayors, and medium-sized cities, and we're no different in being a small city. Any comments or debate on that particular motion? Certainly, Councillor Beale, go ahead.
I'd just like to add as well that at our large sessions, and there was a lot of information coming forth from various experts and pollsters and the like, and time again, what surfaced were common interests across communities, both urban and rural. And furthermore, from the pollsters and the people that they contacted across the country, very, very large numbers, the issues that were nearest and dearest to people's hearts and minds were in fact the types of issues that affect everyday life. They're municipal issues, and those were the things that people were most concerned about. So these municipal issues are in fact issues for all Canadians, and it's important to hear from federal candidates about those issues.
So on that note, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Well, thank you very much for making that unanimous. Has some issues that she wants to bring forward. I have a little bit of housekeeping to do. I sent you an email earlier this week. There's a new network that's been established called the Oceanside Health and Wellness Network, and there's certainly I was asked to join this network. I don't have enough time. I emailed council and I didn't get any takers to do this, and I ran into a new citizen in Parksville who's been here for about a year, I guess, and we got talking, and he was wanting to volunteer, wanted to get involved with city issues. He lives in Parksville, and so I mentioned this Oceanside Health and Wellness Network, and he expressed interest in it. However, as you know from an email that we got from Ms. Comas, very timely, and I was glad to receive that information before going off and nominating somebody that I had no right to do. So I gather that what we're going to need is some kind of a motion that would request that council advertise. I'll let Mrs. Comas get it right the first time. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. We just need a motion from council that staff proceed to undertake the process to solicit volunteers to serve as a council representative on the Oceanside Health and Wellness Network.
Someone would make that motion, and we'll get busy and try to find a volunteer. Councillor Greer?
Thank you, Your Worship. I understood from the emails that Mary, you were willing to do that, along with asking this guy to just be a volunteer to help you?
Not quite. Not quite.
I do find that my plate is rather full, and I'm not prepared to take on something additional. However, I did offer to, in the interim, while we find a suitable volunteer from the many thousands, no doubt, that will show up to volunteer for this. But in all seriousness, I will volunteer, if people would like that, to be the interim person, and then when we do have someone in place, I would like to step aside.
Okay, so if there's no other questions or concerns or comments, I'll call the vote on that particular matter. All those in favor? Oh, did I have a seconder and a mover?
We didn't have a mover or a seconder.
So I need a mover and a seconder. I'm sorry.
I'll move it.
Councillor Greer, seconded by Councillor Powell. Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. We'll get busy on that. There'll be other comments from me on the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Conference, but I don't want to take up too much time tonight. But oddly enough, we had a presentation by Mr. Bruce Anderson, who's the chair of Abacus polling group, which is a national polling group. And his presentation was extremely interesting, and I've got photocopies for everybody, including the press. But I picked up the headline. I was going to do a write-up on it, but the Edmonton Journal did it for me the next day. And the headline read that quality of life is a key issue in the next election, said the pollster. And this is from all Canadians all across Canada. The quality of life looks upon the economy of a community as an ability to promote quality of life. So that's a very, very interesting context. So I've got copies for everybody, which I'll pass out after the meeting, and it makes for very interesting reading in terms of where people in Canada want to vote and why they want to hear from all of the federal leaders, both nationally and locally. So that's it from me. We'll keep on the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. Councillor Beale.
Thank you very much. It really was a wonderful opportunity for me, especially as a new councillor, to attend this conference and get a sense of the work that's being done across the country in municipalities large and small. And once again, the common interests, and just to meet people from all over the place. It was a really fantastic learning experience. We did start out with a very large session. I'm not going to go, don't worry, I'm not going to do this bit by bit, but it really was absolutely the most moving rendition of O Canada that I think anyone could possibly hear and experience and see. There was a version of O Canada was sung by a group called ASANI, A-S-A-N-I, for our visitors at our home audience. Please check them out. The presentation at the conference was particularly magnificent, but it is possible to find on YouTube a rendition of it, and it is sung in English, French, and in a First Nation language, although I don't know exactly which one. So worth checking out. I had an opportunity not only to go to many large sessions, but also to learn more about the role of trees in making our municipalities, our communities a better place, and what efforts different cities are undertaking in that regard, and spent many hours on a session on revitalization through the arts, where I was able to tour a neighborhood that had been in decline and had an influx of a number of criminal elements, making it a rather unsafe neighborhood. And over a period of time, different groups working together, working with the city, with the RCMP, with the neighborhood, and so on, absolutely took back this neighborhood. And it was through a focus on the arts as a catalyst to rebuild and revitalize their neighborhood. It was truly inspiring. And that's all I'll say about the FCM for now, but I do thank everyone for allowing me to go, and I thank you.
Yeah, I can't, Councillor Beale and I were so moved after the singing of the national anthem. I don't think we could talk to each other for a few minutes. It was pretty moving, and it was very, very, I can't think of a proper word. I guess it's moving would be the only word that we can think of. I'll have a lot more to say to council and and the press about some other issues that I'm working on. But the presentations were, hearing from all the national leaders was also very, very interesting. And I guess one of the things that the theme throughout the conference was the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, and I happened to attend a session put on by Karen Joseph, who's who's the executive director, I believe, of the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, and lives in Vancouver. So you'll be hearing more. Council will be hearing more from me on that, and increasing women's participation in local government. That was a very big topic. And I proudly pointed out to everybody that the council in Parksville outweighs the number of men to women. There were 4 women to 3 men, so they thought that was a pretty good start. On that note, we'll call it an evening on the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, but you'll be hearing more from Councillor Beale and myself. Anybody else have new business? Councillor Powell, and then Councillor Oates, and we'll end with Councillor Beale.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to bring it up that we are on stage 3 watering restrictions, and just on my street alone, I've witnessed somebody power washing their driveway for approximately 3 hours, and then across the street, because he was power washing, somebody was washing their fence. And so I'm wondering, it was on a Saturday, pardon me, a Sunday, and so we don't have anybody that's touring around. I know we have a water truck that goes around and watches for that type of thing. I checked with CAO Fred Manson, and we don't have anybody that drives around. I had a report from another person that somebody in their neighborhood was power washing their driveway, and I don't know if you guys saw the report. I think it was in the Vancouver Sun about California and their watering restrictions, and people who own a lot of property and pay $800 a month for water are insisting that they should be able to water their lawns. And so this is becoming a really big issue. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but I drove by the Englishman River. It's pretty low. So I think we need to start trying to enforce what we have.
I'll talk more about that in my final comments. Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've got a couple of different items. I'll start first with I'd like to make a motion. It's with respect to the Western Economic Diversification Canada 150 Community Infrastructure Program. I move that Council support the Western Economic Diversification Canada 150 Community Infrastructure Program application by the City of Parksville for repairs and upgrades to the Parksville Community and Conference Centre. If I had a seconder, I'd speak to that. Okay, this application is due on the 17th of June. It will support planned upgrades to the Parksville Community and Conference Center scheduled for 2016 to 2018. The upgrades include roofing replacement, outer wall, exterior painting, new flooring, interior painting, and replacement of aging kitchen appliances, which are identified as capital improvements in the City's 2015 to 2019 financial plan. The grant application to the Western Economic Diversification requests 50% funding of $141,225.
I have a seconder for that, do I not? Okay. Any comments or questions, debate on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried.
Just one other item. I just want to note to Councillor Greer that the Mayor and Councillor Beale went to the Land Orange and came back relatively unscathed, so maybe it is okay. I just couldn't help. I just want to report, Your Worship, on an excellent day that I had last Thursday. Councillor Beale and myself had the opportunity to accompany city staff and go on a tour to different facilities. We started at our public works yard where we got to meet all the staff, and walking into that lunchroom that morning and seeing the staff there, I'll tell you, it would do your heart good to see it. The level of morale in that room is obvious when you walk there. They were very appreciative that we were there. They were happy to show us their work. We got a tour of the public works yard. We seen the shop there and that, and each of the people that went throughout the day, without exception, every single person that we spoke with were very eager and proud to show us that the work that we do. From there, we went up to where the where the intake site is for the new water treatment plant, and we were shown that and the reasoning for that. It's different when you get to actually see it, physically see what's gone on, and you're able to put the pieces together. From there, we went on up to Top Bridge. We were picked up from there, and then they took us up to Arrowsmith Dam. I had never been to Arrowsmith Dam before. That is quite the engineering feat that they have going up there. Someone mentioned earlier about the level of water in Englishman River. I believe, don't quote me, I'm no engineer, but I believe what I understand is currently, on the day we were there, there was 1.5 megaliters or whatever it was flowing through whatever the time period was. Of that 1.5, 0.5 was directly attributed to what they were releasing from the dam up there. So a full 1/3 of what was coming through the river is as a result of the management abilities that the dam has provided. Scott, the water plant operator, you know, it's his dam, it's his water system. There's no doubt about it. They were very proud to show us all that. We went down to the Craig Bay lift station, and we seen, you know, some of the challenges that are faced from there. Then they took us to where the current intake is for the water treatment facility, for how we treat our water today. What was fortuitous for us and really beneficial is that the day we toured it was a day that they were actually flushing the lines out. So we could see when they turned the water up on those lines, we could see where it was coming out in the river there. And, you know, what we've got there is we've got 2 men physically down there moving gravel and dirt around as the air is there just to loosen that. I'm told that when it was initially installed, this was something that they did probably once a month. I'm told now they're doing it 3 times a week. So the need to get something done with the intake is certainly exemplified with what's going there. From there, we went to the community park. I met the summer students that work there. Again, Your Worship, I cannot put into words the amount of pride that these people take in their job and the work that they do. And they were very proud to show us the park there. Warren, the foreman, accompanied us there. Then we went up to Springwood and had a look at the tennis courts and the facility that was up there. You know, we've got some very good people doing some very good work on a daily basis, and it largely goes unnoticed. And I got to tell you, I had nothing but the utmost respect for our staff. I want to particularly mention Roxy Edwards and Mike Squire, Scott, the water treatment plant operator, Jeff, the foreman, and Warren. Those folks, they were totally accommodating. You know, they answered all the questions. Remember, Councillor Beale was with us, so they were very accommodating, answering all the questions. And it was a fantastic day. I really enjoyed it. I particularly liked seeing the operation of the dam up there and up there. When you go there, if you in your mind were thinking, where would be the pristine place to pull water from? When you're standing at the dam, that's the picture that goes in with the descriptor, because that's pristine up there. And so I want to thank staff immensely for providing me with that opportunity. And anybody that hasn't had the opportunity to do it, you get the opportunity to do it, it's well worth it. It was a great day.
Well, thank you. And, you know, it's I would encourage all members of staff. I know that a lot of you work and don't have that opportunity and couldn't go that day. I myself that day had prior commitments. I couldn't make it, but I've been to all those locations, and I certainly share your comments about the excellence of staff. We're very fortunate as a city to have the staff that we do. They're unbeatable in terms, as far as I'm concerned. I'll put them up against anybody any day of the week and twice on Sunday. So thank you for that. And one other thing I forgot to mention about Councillor Beale. Councillor Beale has a stellar reputation as an educator. And when I watched her walk up to Justin Trudeau at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities conference and said, "Mr. Trudeau, do you remember going to such and such a kindergarten school? Because I was a teacher at that school." And he said, "Yes, I did." No, he really did. I watched his enthusiastic response. Councillor Beale.
No, it was just the Outdoor Education Center. I should erase that word "just" because I think in many of our minds when we have those outdoor experiences, they do stand out. Yes, thank you for that. And it was in the winter. It was probably -12 or -16 that day. But just picking up on one thing that Councillor Oates said, that yeah, the staff really was so knowledgeable. It was a fantastic day out there. And in addition to all the technical information and the whys and wherefores and backgrounds, Jeff was also able to identify the birds that I hadn't seen before, which were American dippers. And it was perfect that they were up there. And if you read about them, which I did when I got home, they are considered to be indicators of water quality. Believe it or not, they are very sensitive to the chemistry in the water. Picking up on something that Councillor Powell mentioned about the river and the water being low, and yet we're keeping it at an adequate amount with the water coming from Arrowsmith Lake behind the dam. I think that what is particularly worrisome is that if you look up on the mountains, there is little or no snowpack. So there's not much coming down to add to that water as we draw on it. So I think we are hoping for rain because it's a bit late for snow. Anyway, moving on, I would like to share a couple of things. I am the board representative council representative on the library board, and I could give you one of these as well, John, if you like. But coming up July 7th at the library, everyone in the community is invited to a community consultation session to talk about the Parksville Library branch. So there are library staff that will be traveling around the Vancouver Island Regional Library area to meet with people. And July 7th is our day. And at 6:30 p.m. So it is an evening session. Refreshments will be provided, and for more information, talk to your librarian. So that is coming along. I also just wanted to mention just something I came across earlier today, and many of you maybe know about this, but someone has launched May 11th, from May 11th to September 27th, the challenge to spend $20 for 20 weeks in Parksville or in the Oceanside area. So we might still shop elsewhere, but I do think that's a lovely minimalist goal. So I share that here in case some people don't know about that incentive. Thank you.
Okay, if there's anybody else have new business, if nobody else, I'll make one final comment, and I'll do it because it's important in what Councillor Powell had to say. I want to talk about lawns. Lawns don't exist in nature. Lawns are an invention of man. And lawns always come back green in the fall. So if there's ever a summer where the lawn should go blonde, it should be this summer. I can't understand the urge for a green lawn. People don't want you walking on the lawn. You can't eat anything on the lawn. So let's cut out the watering of the lawns as much as we can. And maybe just a quick question to the Director of Engineering, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but we're at level 3 now. At some point in time, would we envisage, I don't ever remember going to level 4, but does that become, how do we look at that in terms of going to level 4 at some point in time?
If I may, Your Worship, I think what we have to do at this point is concentrate on, as Councillor Powell had brought forward, we really need to take this seriously, or we will be in a position where we're going to have to crank it up even more. As Councillor Beal had mentioned, there's no snowpack up there. There's no significant rainfall forecasted in the near future. We're definitely in a tough situation. We need people to cooperate, and not watering the lawn is a good start. Certainly not power washing your driveway or fence right now is really, we would appreciate from staff for the whole community is to really pay attention to this level 3 because we are in a tough situation right now.
Thank you. Okay, on that note, seeing no further comments, I'm going to call for an adjournment. that first? Oh, okay, I thought we went, okay. So I need pursuant to section 90.1D of the Community Charter that council proceed to a closed meeting to consider an item relating to the security of the property of the municipality. So I have a move. Councillor Greer, Councillor Oates, all in favor? Do I need a motion to adjourn? I don't need a motion to adjourn. I'll do that later. I like it. So confused with that.
Toast.